March 6th. I know. I'm gonna miss you guys. Thank you. Hi, Margaret. How are you?
Citizen planner course yesterday through MSU and was able to print off my certificate last night. And it's like, okay, I can relax on my birthday. Yeah.
It is 7:01 p.m. We'll call the Eastpointe City Council regular meeting to order. It's January 21st, 2025. Would everyone please rise for the invocation given by Dan Sander, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Most gracious God, I thank you for this day, for this time. We pray for our city council meeting tonight. Let this go smooth. And keep us warm, God. Keep us really warm. I know you're going to be with us, Lord. And we love you and we care about you, Lord. And just take our home safe and do as much as we can do. And Lord, we want us to do as much as we can do. And it was cold for us. So, Lord, keep this meeting going smooth and possible. And all access things in thy name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Baker,
Here.
Councilmember Curley,
Here.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Here.
Mayor Kleinfeld,
Here.
Councilmember Shadlick.
Here.
Moving on to approval of the agenda, I know that there's one thing I am going to request that we add, I suppose at the end of new business, which would be adoption of, there's a resolution that was placed in front of everyone from RARE regarding the joint master plan. I believe that's time sensitive to be approved. So I'd like to add that as item I at the end of new business.
So that would be item I.
Support.
Right. Any other changes to the agenda? All right, please call the roll.
Mayor Kleinfeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Shadlick,
Yes.
Councilmember Curley,
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the first hearing of the public. The first hearing of the public is now open. Would anyone wish to be heard?
Hello, my name is Cheryl Cicchini. My husband and I own one of the buildings on the block between Rain and Cushing for almost 40 years. About 2 years ago, I spoke before you on the importance of keeping our parallel parking in front of our buildings, and we've proven with pictures that we have sufficient space in there to maintain that parking. Today, I'm here to plead with you to please reevaluate and instruct AEW to modify the plans to include parking. City Council does have the right to do this. Cities prioritize convenient parking for businesses because it directly supports economic vitality and community accessibility. Here are some of the reasons why cities emphasize this. It encourages customer visits. Easy parking makes businesses more accessible to customers, increasing foot traffic and sales. If parking is inconvenient, customers may choose competitors or avoid visiting altogether. Two, it attracts new businesses. Ample convenient parking is an incentive for businesses to set up shop in a city, boosting local economic growth and creating more jobs. Three, it supports local economy. When customers find it easy to access local businesses, they're more likely to shop locally, supporting the community. Four, it reduces congestion. Well-planned parking reduces the time vehicles spend circling and searching for spots, alleviating traffic congestion and improving urban flow. It also promotes retention. Businesses with sufficient parking are more likely to stay in the area, reducing vacancies and ensuring long-term economic stability for the city. So now we own our building. The two people on the side of us, both their businesses, they're renting the buildings. And both of them has said if we lose that parking, they're both prepared to leave the city, either go to another community, or the one guy said he might even just go mobile, get a mobile unit and take his business around. So there aren't any public parking lots in our area, none, no space for them. So I'm pleading with you, please, to help us keep this parking area because we really have no parking. And I don't know who it benefits to get rid of our parking. And that's the one question I have, like, who would actually win by taking our parking away from us? We can't park behind, we're stuck like sending people down the side streets
You have about
maybe.
30 seconds?
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay, and I just wanted to show, I have a picture here of the front of our building. This is the sidewalk, and this shows how much space we have. So there's ample enough room for parking, and you can alter the sidewalk, make it bigger, smaller, larger, whatever you need to do, but please reconsider changing those plans and keeping our parking. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to be heard?
Good evening, council. Good to see everybody out here, as cold as it is. Something happened the last council meeting where I made a comment regarding something another resident said, and I went on a rant, and I'm here to apologize for that. That was not my intent, and I don't ever want that to be part of who people think I am. So I'm apologizing publicly since I made the statement publicly. And I hope we all learn to stay civil and cordial to one another, no matter how discontent we get. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Steve Atanosovsky. I own East Detroit Bakery down the road. I'm here before you, as the young lady before me here is asking for the parking to be kept as is. We currently have a crew of 16 people that work for us. And between the front and the side, we have about 25 parking spots. And we're pressed right now to keep our business as is. Business is either you go forward, you go backward. If you stay stagnant, you go backward. And nobody's in business to go backward. And unfortunately, if you guys take this parking away from us, we're gonna go backward. And we might, if we have no choice, we'll have to move. We can't pick up the building and move it, but I can pick up my business and move it. And we might be forced to do that. There is no other scenario. It took us, my business, excuse me, has been owned by our family since 1970. And it's taken, 50 plus years to get it where it's at with people retiring, selling the one building and selling another building. And I was here not too long ago asking for a variance to add parking, which you guys, the city council, approved. Now I'm here asking you guys to keep my parking. We didn't do that just for the sake of doing it. We felt a need to do it. We actually had my nephew is a forensics accountant in Birmingham, and through a simple little survey with a questionnaire for about 40 days that they handed out to customers, and it was like 5, 6 questions. How often do you come? How much money do you spend? Why don't you come more often? And so forth. And they came up with the solution that with more parking, that our business would grow through those simple questions. And that's what we did. And I feel that if you guys take the parking away from us, that we won't be able to survive. It's a pretty big business. It's a viable business. And to be fair, there's only about 24 of them from 94 to 9 Mile that are viable, that have been here for a very long time.
You have about 30 seconds.
And I hope, those businesses that have been here for 40 years, that you guys do whatever you can to keep them. My son and my nephew took their hands-on probably about 5-6 years ago, and we were hoping that we could stay here probably for another 30 years. I don't see why not. But the only setback is if the front parking is taken away from us, I don't know if we can survive. Where are my people going to park? Where are the customers going to park? We're in the same boat as the young lady.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, Jennifer Nicholas, Eastpointe resident. I'd like to talk about 9 Mile also. We had conversations last meeting about the safety of 9 Mile. I know some council members have a different understanding of safety, public safety versus their idea of safety for walkability. I'm looking at from Kelly Road to Tuscany, and I see CVS Pharmacy drive-through, Captain J's drive-through, Popeyes drive-through, Subway drive-through, Wendy's drive-through, McDonald's drive-through, Legends drive-through, Taco Bell drive-through, 2 gas stations, Safe Light Auto Glass, Enterprise Car Rental, Pennzoil Oil Change Place, All Point Auto Repair, and then I think there's another auto repair business in that stretch. Additionally, you have Deroni's Hardware, even the hair salons and that are along the road, I really don't envision people spending $100 on getting their hair done and then riding a bicycle home. I'm just curious, which of these businesses are residents supposed to be starting to walk to or ride their bikes to? They are all car-oriented. They obviously are doing very well. They've been here for years, some of them decades. People want convenience. When they're coming home from work and coming off of 94, coming home from work, they want to go through a drive-through and pick up 3 Happy Meals and a couple value meals, take them home for dinner. This is what 9 Mile is. There's a lot of things that can be done to make it look better without reducing the lanes on the road and impeding traffic for public safety. You have bus stops all up and down 9 Mile. Even though you're talking about 3 lanes and having cutouts for buses don't go from 35 miles an hour to stop. Buses have to slow down and pull over, and then they have to pull out again. Much more challenging on a 3-lane road as opposed to a 5-lane road. Again, people have already said that they will avoid 9 Mile. They will use side streets. They will find some shortcut. We all do. I do it. I'll cut through a parking lot if it saves me from having to wait at a light at an intersection if I'm in a hurry. I assume most other people do too. So, again, I would really like an explanation of where is it that we are walking to on 9 Mile? Where is it that we are biking to on 9 Mile? Hopefully you can address that in your comments later. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard?
Karen Morage, an East Point resident. In keeping in line with the last time I spoke at public comment, this is about keeping our animals safe here in the city. And Councilman Curley, thank you for your efforts in doing what you can for the feral cats. As we all know, these temperatures are beyond brutal. They're, you know, we're dealing with Arctic temperatures, and, you know, I joke with my friends, I'm waiting to, you know, look out my front room window and see the polar bears showing up. But there are people who still are not being responsible. They're not using common sense. They're leaving their cats and dogs outside in these frigid temperatures. And we do have the ordinances in place for that. You know, unfortunately, we just don't have enough animal control officers to meet the needs of all of our animals here in the city. You know, and this is nothing new. I mean, this was even before the ordinance was drafted and passed. It takes common sense, just as simple as that. Go outside with your dog, you know, in these temperatures. And guess what? You know, when it's too cold for you to stay outside anymore, well, you know, your dog feels the same way. It's time to bring them in. I've lost track how many times my security camera picks up pretty much on a nightly basis cats, and they don't belong in these temperatures either. There is one thing I'm still keeping an eye on, and I assure you, as soon as this is reintroduced through the Michigan State Legislature, I will be discussing it. It came really close to being passed, but unfortunately, they just didn't get it done before January. And it was a bill, and it had bipartisan support to increase the sentencing for the animal cruelty convictions. And all I can say is, well, it's about damn time. And I am looking forward to being a key witness on an animal cruelty ticket that has recently been issued. You know, the guy is just a miserable SOB, and I really hope the prosecutor and the judge throws the book at him. Thank you. I know I'm out of time.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone else? Seeing none, the hearing of the public is closed. We'll move on to approval of the minutes. Item A, regular meeting minutes from January 7, 2025.
Mayor, I would move that we accept the minutes of our regular meeting on January 7th, 2025.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Curley.
Yes?
Councilmember DeMonico.
Yes.
Mayor Kleinfeld.
Yes.
Councilmember Shadlick.
Yes.
Councilmember Baker.
Yes.
All right, we'll move on to our scheduled hearings. We have one scheduled hearing, which is the 2025 to 2029 Joint Parks and Recreation Master Plan. We have the resolution later on the agenda. This is just for anyone who wants to speak directly to the proposed master plan. So with that, that hearing is now open. Would anyone like to speak to the Joint Parks Recreation Master Plan?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Tony Lipinski, Director for the Recreation Authority, Roseland, Eastpointe. As you know, we've been working on this Parks and Recreation Master Plan for over a year, getting public input. I wanted to introduce Cassie Metal, planner who's from Spalding and DeDecker, who's been working with us to put this plan together to submit to the DNR, and she would like to just go over the process, then get some public comments.
Good evening. So the process started from a public input, community engagement process in March of last year with a public survey that was posted that was available for 5 months. There were also maps posted at City Hall here and at the Recreation Center where residents could comment and write in what they wanted to see, what they love most about each facility and what they would want to see additional in each facility. So those were available for engagement. In addition, we had a team attend 3 events, Eastpointe, Gratiot, Cruise Car Show, and Roseville, Rosefest, Pride in the Park, and Rockin' Summer Night. And we distributed about 500 business cards with links to the survey and talked with residents at the event to gather any additional feedback on what they would like to see either in the facilities or from a recreation programming standpoint. We also met with the Rare Board multiple times and engaged and solicited feedback via email and a questionnaire from all of the organizations that use the park facilities. The last meeting, November 13th, was with the Parks Commission, and they recommended, they reviewed and provided input in the plan and recommended approval. Then the City of Roseville has also approved the plan. So this is part of the MDNR requirements for grant approval. The deadline for submission of a document is February 1st. If there are any comments received during the public hearing today, we amend the report to include those. So there is an opportunity for any other amendments and clarifications to the report document as well.
Don't forget the maps that were put up at City Hall, Rec Center.
Oh, yeah. Yep, the maps that were put up during
Those got a lot of comments.
They did, and we provided a summary of those. They're incorporated into the report document as well. So there's a community findings summary in Chapter 5, focus group input summary, and community comments and requests by park, and then a SWOT analysis included in Chapter 5 of the report.
So that we're just looking for any other public comments.
Thank you.
Yep.
Would anyone else like to make comments?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Gary Sasek, Chairman of the Eastpointe Parks Commission, and I'm here to also support the master plan. The Parks Commission, over the 5 years that we've been working with the previous master plan, count on it as a tool to help us when we're doing walkthroughs through, walkthroughs through the parks. We do a walkthrough every year just to evaluate the needs of the parks, what needs to be improved, what else we can improve. So we strongly support the master plan because it's a tool that's also used to apply for grants. And as everybody knows, cities rquire on grants to help with a lot of the processes. Something we're going to be looking more towards in the future is what can be done with the Shamrock tennis courts. And again, maybe revisiting the green space behind it. So hopefully the City Council will support the 5-year master plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on the plan?
Mayor, I just have a question and a comment. Gary, I heard through a rumor that it was your birthday today.
Oh, geez.
Oh.
Is that right?
Yes, I turned 78 years old today. Thank you.
78. Well, if I had a bottle of sangria here, I wouldn't give it to you. We'll open it up. I could get the little tiny glasses like that so everybody could participate. But happy birthday.
Thank you.
Any comments?
Sure, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead. Oh, sorry.
Ms. Mary Jane had a comment.
Just a quick. Again, sorry, let me just throw these 2 points in real quick. In honor, in memory of Harvey Creech, I hope you're keeping the shuffleboards. He taught me how to play that, and it was a blast. And I'll tell you, we could never get through a game without kids interrupting, and it took forever to finish a game because, the kids wanted to learn how to play shuffleboard, and Harvey would teach them how to play shuffleboard. The other thing is it's probably not a part of the master plan, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. And I've sent Darren emails about this. Unfortunately, it seems like there's a problem at Spindler Park with those cute little storyboards for the kids. They're being vandalized. The plexiglass is being, destroyed. I'll still walk the trail there any chance I get. And there are just like massive chunks missing in regards to the plexiglass. They've went through and, just obscene, vulgar graffiti on whatever signs they can write on. Darren has been great in, addressing it right away, but I wanted to make sure that everyone knows, and especially, Gary and Tony being with the parks, something needs to be done. Wouldn't it be nice if you could put security cameras up, but where would you be able to put them high enough so that they can't vandalize the security cameras? But, unfortunately, there's a lot of juvenile delinquents running amok in the city, and they're vandalizing things. And it's really sad because those stories are so cute for the kids. And they're being destroyed, because people are just being irresponsible in raising and disciplining their kids. They're letting them run wild. So anyways, that's my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other comments? Seeing none, the hearing on the 2025-2029 Joint Parks and Recreation, oh, I'm sorry, you had a comment, didn't you?
Sure.
I take that back, go ahead.
I don't know if it's important if it's part of the hearing or not, but I thought there were 3 items that were particularly interesting to me in the plan. One is the heat map of where all of the parks are, and I think it'd be important for us to take a look at that and try to fix that and make it more equitable throughout the city on how close a park is, because everyone said basically their main reason for picking a park or being their favorite park was how close it was to their house. So if someone, of course, doesn't have one as close, maybe they're not going to the park just because it's not close. I think we've got a couple opportunities to fix that. In the most requested amenities in the survey, it said bike paths. We've, of course, talked about those a little bit over the years. I thought that was interesting. And then the third one, which we've already started and hopefully continue, is basketball courts was the most popular sport on the youth sport on the one page. So, of course, we built our first basketball court in a long time, and we've planned to build a second one. So I think I was happy to see that. I think we've been moving in the right direction.
All right.
That was all.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, now the hearing on the 2025-29 Joint Parks and Recreation Master Plan is closed. Unfinished business. Item A, discussion on in-house planning services. Did any council members want to open up with their thoughts on this?
Mayor, I don't have an opening comment, but I would ask the city manager to give her rationale as why we should be discussing this.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So last year during the budget cycle, we introduced the idea of going in-house for planning services. One, just with a preference of having in-house services versus a contractor and the level of service that you receive. Planning services are also very important to an organization in terms of development, and typically are combined with economic development. The city of Eastpointe in the last several years is seeing a significant increase in terms of development on the commercial side as well as residential. Right now, we currently have contracted services with McKenna, we get about 8 to 10 hours per week in the building. And those are the hours that if a business owner is looking towards an expansion or redevelopment or looking for some assistance with economic development, those are the hours that we have per week available to individuals that are investing in the community. My recommendation last year during budget was to bring that service in-house and have a full-time person dedicated to the planning services, as well as assisting with a lot of economic development initiatives to really move Eastpointe forward. From the last meeting, City Council had requested some additional information and structures for different local governments in the area, which has been provided in the packet, as well as a breakdown in terms of the salary range of a position that would be incoming or an employee that would be incoming, as well as a breakdown per hour for the contractor and a breakdown per hour for in-house services, with basically an increase in the level of service for the planning side, and really enhancing the building department services and how we serve our community and those that invest in our community. If there are any questions on what has been provided, I'm more than welcome to answer those.
Does anyone have any questions? So I guess I'll give my comments. When this first came up, I was, I think, opposed to the idea and worried about it. I had some conversations with Ms. Walton. She had some persuasive points to consider it. I think it's something that I still would like to consider transitioning to long-term. I did talk to some officials in other cities to see how they dealt with their in-house planning. My understanding is there's a lot of situations where there's crossover with building responsibilities because sometimes there's not enough work for the planner. I think with a transition coming up in administration, I don't think I'd want to pull the trigger on this right now. I'd rather sort of make sure that we have our city manager position filled before we bring in sort of another branch of someone to work under that. And then whoever that ends up being, I think, would also have a little bit of say in shaping what that transition would look like. So I appreciate all the information that administration gave us. I think it's something I want to consider, but I think at this point in time, I'd rather just stick with contracted services in more plan ahead if we are going to move something in-house. Because generally speaking, I am in favor of moving things in-house. I think we end up with better service that way. But I also think it ends up being more expensive, so.
Just for clear, so are you guys, is council looking to do an RFP? Because the contracted services would be ended, so council would like to move forward with posting an RFP for planning services?
That would be my preference. I do think it needs to go out for bid again.
I'd agree with that, going out to bid again for planning services.
Any other comments?
Yeah, you know, just reading over everything, I was kind of leaning more towards going with the in-house. It just seems that the services provided, from what I was reading, would be better and better suited for the businesses that are looking to grow and expand, new businesses coming in, even with the residential aspect of it. And I think that even with our transition from our city manager's position, even moving forward with the interim, I think we stand a good chance because we're talking about someone who has a familiarity with the city, the businesses, the lay of the land, the inner workings. It's not somebody new coming in. And I know that the interim position is not permanent, but I think that we can still transition smoothly just because of how we're moving in that regard. So for me, I wouldn't have any reservation about bringing it back in-house because it seems like we would be getting, and this is no disrespect to anybody out there that would be contracted, but it just seems like our services would be better and it would be better use of our money to do so. But that's my opinion about it.
Sure.
Mayor, I would just make a brief comment that McKenna, who we have now, and his McKenna Associate, have been doing an incredible job. Excuse me. And I personally would like to stay with contracting something from outside and not bring somebody in. They have the experience, and we are getting a lot of business in our city now, and I think we need to stay with the winner.
Well, if I may, I guess with currently what we have, we were told that we have someone who's not experienced currently, that they could reach out for help or assistance. And though I appreciate that honesty, I don't feel that that is the best use or the best practice currently. And my understanding was that going back in-house, you would be looking to hire an experienced planner to do it. So I don't think we would be falling short in that regard. But we talk about the growth of our businesses, sustaining our businesses, helping our businesses in this community. And it's been a thing that's been brought up at this table for a very long time. And so I think that if we want our businesses to thrive and to be able to do the things that they desire to help their businesses grow, I think hiring an experienced planner, we wouldn't be selling ourselves short. But if we go with someone who isn't experienced and then we have to rely on phone calls to get the assistance so that that person will know what direction to go in, I think we kind of sell ourselves short just in that regard. But hiring an experienced planner, I think, helps us to move forward a lot better, and I think it would be a good use of our resources.
All right, thank you. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, how long have we dealt with McKenna currently?
Oh, I don't know. They've been here since I've been here, so it's over 5 years.
That's kind of what I was thinking, okay. And during that time, I mean, I dealt with them with the planning commission, so I've had some experience, and I know we've had turnover there. You know, originally we had Mara, and then we had Brigitte, and I know they're both gone now, but I just feel like we haven't had a bad experience with them overall, so that's my position. I can see the benefit to both, but I think I just want to observe some caution right now in creating that position in-house right now. Not that I'm against in-house positions, but I just think that for right now, I'd like to go with McKenna, or put the RFP out rather, go with an outside.
Sure. Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think so my thoughts on this, I think there's a lot of opportunities to have positions in-house, but I think this is one of the harder areas where this one's harder to scale, I'd say, with one person, because as I've been liaison to Planning Commission also, you know, they'll have a pretty consistent amount of work. But then if we get into planning the master plan, or we do the rezoning, well, we did the entire zoning ordinance recently, which of course is a lot of work, then I think having that group back at your company is easier than if we have the one planner here. Again, I like to bring things like in-house, like code enforcement, you know, should be definitely in-house, like the building department, as we've talked about. You know, and then you get into the real world, like with assessing, where it was very hard to just find anyone to hire. And then I think we'd run into that here, where we've got maybe a range of 81 to 110. And we're talking about how much we spend here. It was about, you know, 65,000 in the last fiscal year. But if the minimum's 81, we're looking for an experienced planner. I'm guessing we're gonna get closer to that 110. So we're gonna be paying 110 a year, you know, plus benefits, or, you know, maybe 110 including the benefits, for $60,000 worth of like normal work, where I think it can scale to like the projects we need for planning. I guess that's just where I'm at with
Mayor, if I may? Sure. I'd just like to clarify too, some of the larger projects are separate from what you're looking at in terms of billing. So like master plan would be a separate project that you guys bid out that other organizations or businesses can bid on and would be done separate from planning in-house. So those larger plans like 9 Mile Strategic Plan, those are projects bid out that organizations can bid on and those things are done. Most organizations that are not structured with 6 or 7 people typically bid those projects out and they're completed by different organizations, similar to RARE and their master plan. Those are done by outside sources. So the $60,000 would have never covered any type of cost for an additional project. Another point, and just some direction from council, the current planner that has been assigned to us is not yet licensed. And so there's a huge lift that administration and the building department now have to be able to get to a point of having items at planning commission, to have recommendations, to review items, which is a significant reduction in service for what you're paying for. Is there any direction that you guys would like us to take in discussion with McKenna? We've pushed back as much as we can to get a licensed person, and we've not received that. So is there any direction from council that you'd like us to take in working with McKenna to ensure that we have a level of service that meets the needs of the community?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, also the limited time frame. This young person who is coming with no credentials, the clock stops and he's gone. So it may be something, it's building up, and we are getting farther behind in just 2 weeks. So yes, we need direction, as the city manager said, to be able to demand someone with the credentials and maybe even more hours. We are finding a lot of things that have not been completed due to the inconsistencies with the people who have been assigned. There are particularly site plan issues, parking lots, greening requirements, things like that were never followed up upon because it was planner to planner to planner. A year and a half ago, somebody was approved incorrectly and their parking lot is a mess. So things like that have been very inconsistent because of the fact that it's a new person, a new person, a new person. Thank you.
I'm sorry, when's the contract up again?
June, the end of June this year, yes.
So I think for the purpose of this discussion, we were talking about the transition in-house. I think certainly going out with an RFP, we can include information of what kind of staffing or licenses need to be present with the services we're seeking. If there needs to be a deeper discussion on specific issues with this contract and whether or not council would act in any way on the current contract, I think that might be a separate discussion. I don't want to overlap. I'm trying to keep them separate because I think one can be certainly a little dicey to navigate. In terms of the issues with the contract, perhaps if administration wants to seek any specific action or maybe just write something a little more detailed to council so we're aware of it, maybe that would be something we could give direction at the next council meeting if it's needed. I don't know, how does administration feel about that?
That's fine.
All this discussion is going through my head. So, city manager, I'll ask you, how far up in discussions, when Kim listed a number of things that you're not satisfied with, how far up the ladder did you sit down and have a discussion?
We've been in discussion with the president of the organization.
And frankly, if we, get responses to an RFP, certainly at that time, any issues I think would be a topic for discussion. All right, does anyone have any other comments, or does the administration have anything else specific they'd like to add? All right, we will.
I do have one question. So if we do, if the RFP is put out, do we still potentially run the risk of getting someone kind of like what we have right now that is unlicensed, or, and this is just from my understanding, or is that going to be specific when you put that RFP out that it has to be someone licensed? Or do we still run the risk of running into the same issue that we have now? And I'm just curious about that.
That's a tough one. We can certainly put restrictions or expectations for a contractor in the RFP to require it. I've never dealt with a contractor sending an unqualified person to fulfill a job, especially a full-time job, that requires especially legal documents and approvals. So this one's kind of newer to me to experience. So I would expect if it's in the RFP that they would be required to do that, not that.
Okay. All right. I guess the reason for that question is, I don't want to tie you guys' hands or the city's hands when trying to move forward with all the things that the planners needed to do. So, okay.
Great. Any other comments?
Sure, I think, Mr. Mayor, I mean, I'd be happy to offer a motion on this then. Sure. I'd motion that we put an RFP out for planning services and administration could make adjustments as discussed just now.
Is there support?
Support.
Okay. I didn't catch everything that you said. I'm sorry.
Put an RFP out for planning services and administration could adjust for the discussion just now, according to the discussion just now.
And I think that's fair. I think ultimately, if there are gaps in a contract, you don't discover them until you stumble across them. So, any other discussion on that? Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Shadlick?
Yes.
Mayor Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
No.
Councilmember Curley.
Yes.
All right. Moving on to item B, discussion and approval of the DDA RAP grant project. Would anyone like to open up on this? I know that some of the council members have been meeting with the DDA. I don't know if you'd have any comments relevant to those meetings.
I would, Cody and I are both on that subcommittee, but I would yield to Councilman DeMonico to start this thing.
So I think we have a pretty narrow thing we need to address right now. The DDA wants us to address Ethel and Court. I guess I thought Mr. Kern would be here, but I don't think it'll be necessary. But they had essentially proposed like 5 different options on what we could do at Ethel and Court, AEW did. They're pretty different considering the one house there on where like their driveway and all that would be. But long story short, my opinion is that what we could try is we just temporarily close Ethel and Court down as necessary when we do farmers markets or things like that. And then I think as we do that, we can figure out what the best bet is as opposed to trying to guess now, actually doing construction, and then potentially saying, shoot, might have been better if we did it slightly differently. I think a lot of people do it with the social districts, right? They'll close the street down and temporarily do that. So I don't think it's any sort of, thing that's not like professional or not like appropriate. But they wanted us, the DDA wants us to at least make a decision going forward on that. Like now.
From your conversations on the subcommittee, does that tend to be the agreement on that subcommittee that what you just proposed makes sense?
Yeah, I would say so. A lot of different things were proposed. Yeah, what were the comments here we have? Does any of this actually talk about, 4 requests the city? Okay, so we don't have really any notes in here. Yeah, I'd say the 2 members on the DDA as part of the committee were for sure okay with that. Randy, right, you wouldn't disagree. And I think you're pretty probably neutral on it.
The discussion was the project can move forward with or without the closure. You can actually save about $79,000 in project cost. The idea was to kind of green the place up and shut down traffic, but the alternative that Councilman DeMonico has tossed out is, it would still work.
Okay.
Well, if I could add to what you had said, there's a couple things that, each place where a car is parked, there'll be a carport, and they're concerned about to make sure the carports the roof is high enough so trucks could get in there. So that's one thing that they can get with the city engineer on that. And they talked about perhaps acquiring the parking lot that's next to the bank, that's right alongside Eflin Court. The only question I would have if the bank wants to sell it, and however, how much money, is the DDA going to pick up that cost, or does the city have to?
Well, hold on. I think we talked about maybe utilizing it.
Oh, without owning it.
I think we might be able to. I mean, I think we're getting slightly ahead of ourselves, but I think for State Bank,
I love getting ahead of myself.
They're indicating maybe that the person I talked to needs to, talk to their bosses at the bank, but they might allow us to utilize it on the weekend for a farmer's market. So I think we can at least start there. If it goes somewhere else after that, I guess we could consider it further down the line too.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things you're going to have to look at that parking lot, because I went by there today. There were 7 trucks parked there from the company that took over the old bank on the corner of Bethel Court.
Yeah, Chemtech.
So it appears that they use that parking lot. Now, whether they do on weekends, I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
There's still a good amount of spots. I don't remember how many, but probably a couple dozen.
Any other comments? And if not, I suppose, Mr. DeMonico, would you like to make a motion to that effect?
Sure, I had written something down. Let me find that real quick here. Say, a motion then to temporarily close Ethelyn Court as necessary for programming and activities related to the DDA RAP grant project for, for calendar years 2025 and 2026.
Well, that's simple enough.
Support?
Yeah.
Yeah, I support it, but with another question, if I may. We talked about the owner of a home that's on the corner, their driveway that goes into their garage. So, council, we're going to have to deal with that. If we close it temporarily on the days that we have to close the rest of it, then we have to be in mind that that portion where they can get into their driveway would be open to them. Just a point to remember that.
Yeah, and if I recall, I think the intention was to eliminate through traffic, but obviously that person will still have access to their own drive.
Yeah, they'd exit to Virginia, and then, it'd be closed through from Gratiot to Virginia.
All right, any other comments on that? Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Curley,
Yes.
Councilmember Shadley?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Mayor Kleinfeld?
Yes. Moving on to reports from administration, starting with our city manager's report. Ms. Walton.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So first reminder, Neighborhood Watch is coming up January 28th at 6 p.m. here in council chambers. Our chief, fire chief, and maybe a special guest will be joining. So it's a very lively group, very engaged group. If you'd like any stats or any upcoming updates from the things happening in Eastpointe from the fire chief and police chief, please join us. Board and commission openings, the local officers compensation commission usually meets every other year. This year is one of those years, and they currently have an opening. So if you're interested in serving on a board or commission, please submit an application for your interest. Most of our departments are working on budget and planning for the next year. So we're all kind of busy humming along with that. And I believe the library also has a tax program coming up. Next Monday, they're starting a program to assist with taxes. So if you're interested, it is a pre-scheduled, so they're not just available on standby, but you do have to schedule ahead. So if you have questions or you need tax assistance, please reach out to the library or stop in to get on the schedule for that. With that, Mayor and Council, if you have any questions, I can certainly answer those.
All right. Does anyone have any questions?
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Oh, go ahead.
I love the city manager. She forgot the key word, free.
Sure, I had two items, Mr. Mayor. First one, the event about the police and court building. I saw on Facebook we were calling it a special city council meeting, but I thought, unless someone disagreed, we just meant for it to be like an event, not a formal meeting. I didn't know if anyone disagreed or get a comment on that.
Sure. So it was scheduled as a special meeting because all of council is invited. And so for all of council to be involved and active in the conversation and in the event that council would like to provide any direction, it was scheduled as a special meeting so that all council members could participate and not violate the Open Meetings Act.
And I had asked about that too. I don't really have a strong opinion either way. I think it's okay to have a meeting scheduled just in case. But you know, if it is just a town hall, there's not gonna be any deliberation or anything like that. We essentially can cancel it if we're not gonna have a discussion. So that was kind of my thought anyway.
I recall that at our last meeting, we had wanted to do that kind of town hall so that residents could participate and be informed as well. Was that the understanding? I mean.
Yes, and really I thought it would be the focus less on us, more on the chief and maybe the judge if they have information they want to share, so.
Will they also be participating? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Will they also be participating in the event or?
Yes, do we nail down a new date?
We haven't yet. So essentially, it'd be scheduled as a special meeting, but you'd still have the presentations in that engagement, and you'd also still have the public engagement as well. But if the council would like to make or give direction based on a design or the feedback that they have, it essentially just covers the council to be able to participate in the conversation, as the council will essentially vote on it in an upcoming meeting. So it protects the council and allows you to still engage and deliberate on whatever the feedback is or whatever the presentations provide. It's not a requirement to do so, but noticing it as a special meeting provides that protection for the council to comply with OMA, given that there is a moment that you do want to participate in the discussion.
Councilman Curley, did you have?
Not anymore. Never mind.
And I do believe they're participating. We're just, I think, getting everyone scheduled together for when that works. Any other questions?
Yeah, and then I had a second item was just about 9 Mile with the upcoming reconstruction this year of Part 2. I just was wondering if we could, at the next meeting, review the engineering plans that we currently have, especially with a couple folks again talking about their parking on their buildings because they're part of this second section. And of course, we've talked about it and even motioned regarding that. So if we can have that on the next agenda, I'd like to request that.
Sure.
A question on that, Mayor. I think we should talk about it. With those documents that we're going to get, have recommendation about I don't even want to say the word. Reducing the amount of lanes. Will that be part of the discussion?
I think we're talking phase.
This is just phase 2. No road diet for phase 2, Council.
That's what it's called. Well, we haven't voted on any of that anyway.
We voted on phase 2. We nixed it.
With what he said?
Yeah, so,
I'm not going to say the word. I would say road destruction, but that's,
I don't think those.
What I
business
just
owners would agree
requested
with that.
is not related.
okay.
all right, any other questions for Ms. Walton? We'll move on to our finance director's report, Mr. Blau.
Yes, Mayor and Council. Last week I sent out the GLWA preliminary rates for the upcoming year. Significant, excuse me, a significant increase on the water side. Fortunately, that's the smallest part of the water rates, so it will not be as bad as GLWA. The sewer side flows through the sanitary district, and that's about 90% of the sewer rate comes from them. So we'll see what our representative, Mayor Kleinfeld, does for us. But the sanitary district will drive the sewer rates this year. But just a heads up. And that's it, my budget amendment's coming up next, so.
All right, any questions for Mr. Blau? Move on
Just-
to, oh,
just-
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to take over the microphone tonight, but when that comes to us, and bottom line, there's going to be an increase in the water sewer, correct? So I would hope that during that agenda, you would have a chance to put it up on a screen and show as many people as we possibly can what's coming. It's coming, so you know yourself how many calls you get about the water rates, and it's really not the water itself, it's all the other things that's in there. So we'll have to talk about that, or because the water rates are going to, does that mean all those other things are going to be raised percentage-wise? But I think no holds barred presentation so the folks can see it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to that. I know that we haven't set rates for the sanitary district yet, but maybe that's something I can work with Randy on once we have numbers to show what we do with it, the city after that.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right, city attorney's report, Mr. Albright.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. I had a really productive meeting last week with Mariah and Kim and Randy regarding the drafting of a final version of the recreational adult use ordinance. I will have a version for council's consideration at the first meeting in February. I don't anticipate that it's going to be in first reading form because I want to make sure that there aren't any additional additions or deletions or questions that the council has. So I anticipate having a first reading set for the second meeting in February. And in the meantime, Ms. Holman is also working on a policy as well that's going to somewhat mirror, and I know her and I are working on it together, but it's somewhat going to mirror how we had the policy on the medical marijuana ordinance as well. But again, I'll have that ready for the next meeting. Mayor, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Any questions?
No.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll move on to new business approval budget amendment, BA 25-03. Mr. Blum, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, Mayor, Council. This is just a kind of a mid-year update. The biggest item is we finally got the information from the court on a couple of grants they had, which allows me to finally make the amendment. Those are net zero, though, the revenue and the expense offset. So I just needed the information from them to know what categories to put it in. The largest other changes, excuse me, I am reducing the cable franchise fee revenue. A lot of people cutting the cord, and we're seeing the impact. But that's partially offset by the increase in investment income for this year. Excuse me. Love this time of year. And then some of the other items that are out there have to do with the building department and the McKenna extension. So there's a large increase on the contractual services, but then there's a reduction on some of the wages because we extended McKenna and took longer to get people in the door. The net effect of this is $47,000 a little over 47,000 impact to the general fund.
All
That's
right. Did anyone have any questions on the proposed amendment?
Maybe one quick question about the cable TV franchise fees. So those are per user who has cable then? Are there's some, well, I guess is the same thing for internet? I thought we just charged for them to use the right of way a certain amount, but maybe that's just the cell phone towers?
Yeah, that's a separate one. There's antenna lease, which is different. The cable franchise, there's it's called a franchise fee that the community gets. It's 5% of their billings within the city. So we get a quarterly check from WOW, Comcast, and AT&T. And that had been, in previous years, it had been as high as 450,000. It's been steadily declining as more and more people go to just internet. We don't get anything for that. It's only true cable.
The utility companies don't pay anything to have the internet cables then in the right of way?
No. There's a right-of-way maintenance, but that's to reimburse us for any maintenance cost we incur maintaining the right-of-way. But yeah, they don't pay, if somebody strings fiber optic, we don't see anything for that.
Okay.
Any other questions? Would anyone like to make a motion?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, I'll motion that we approve budget amendment BA 25-03 as presented.
Second.
All right. Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Curley,
Yes.
Mayor Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Shadlick?
Yes.
All right, moving on to item B, approval of the MOU between the City of Eastpointe and Clinton Township for the JAG grant. Would anyone like to open with a motion?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, I'll motion that we approve the memorandum of understanding between the City of Eastpointe and the Charter Township of Clinton for Eastpointe to be the fiscal agent to accept funds on behalf of both agencies under the 2024 BJA fiscal year 24 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program.
Second.
All right, did anyone have any comments or questions?
Well, just, I think the folks would be interested, at the bottom of our memorandum, it said that JAG mission allocations to the following parties are as follows. Clinton Township, $27,156. Eastpointe, $17,958.
New police radios for us. And
Yep.
new in-car mobile data computers, MDCs for Clinton Township.
All right. Any other comments? Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Curley,
Yes.
Mayor Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Shadlick?
Yes.
Moving on to item C, second reading and adoption of ordinance number 25-1245, amend chapter 10, article 3, rental housing.
So moved.
Support.
All right. Did anyone have any questions or want to make comments on this?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, I'll make a comment on this. So this ordinance is something we implemented 10 years ago, and we're essentially fixing it according to advice from the Department of Justice. And just personally, I mean, this was not long after I started on city council, and, you know, of course, as time goes on, you learn things, and I think we're writing this here because essentially this is something that just applies to rental properties, that doesn't apply to people that own their home. Essentially just for like a certain amount of times that that public safety's called, could be almost regardless of maybe reason, you know, a landlord could kick their tenant out. But if you're sitting at home and you own your house, you don't have to worry about this. But if you're a tenant, you do. And of course, it can be for completely legitimate reasons, but if your tenant wants to give, or if your landlord wants to give you a hard time, maybe it could end up being that you're out of your house. So, long story short, I'd say that's essentially why the DOJ is suggesting that cities across the country change this. You know, we're certainly not the only city in the country with an ordinance like this, but I at least just wanted to share that, and that's why I'm in favor of approving this.
All right. Any other comments? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Shadlick?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Mayor Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Curley.
Yes?
Moving on to item D, discussion and possible motion on amendments to Chapter 18, Article 6, rodent control. Did anyone want to, well, I guess, would administration like to just briefly explain what this is?
Absolutely. So one of the regular complaints that we receive to the building department is essentially regarding rodents. One of the difficulties from the building department in being able to identify and take action is that they tend to spread between multiple properties, and it's hard to identify, especially with our ordinance, where exactly the problem started. So sometimes there are 2 or 3 properties in a row, or that's where droppings are found. So we had spoken initially with the city attorney briefly, and there is language within the ordinance that would allow the city to essentially require the property owner to abate the issue. Part of it is that we just need clarifying language and identifying the droppings and identifying the responsible property. So those are the changes that are included in the ordinance today. Once this is done, this will give us kind of the direction and the building department firm ground in identifying the property responsible for the rodents and move forward with abating that.
All right, did any council members have any comments or questions?
So the motion that we're going to read in a moment says that the city attorney is to review and finalize the proposed amendments and schedule a first reading on February 4th at our regular council meeting, correct? Yes? Just a question. I know, I should know the answer. If there's some evidence that there are rodents at somebody's house, and I know the kind of restriction we have that we can't enter the backyard, right? I mean, so, is that right? That's right. Will this clarify that, and somebody who was there specifically to look at the situation about rodents, will they be allowed to go onto the property?
That's the hope.
That's the what?
That's the hope, yes.
For this new ordinance?
Yes.
Okay. So that'll be in there on when we get to the second reading, or to the first reading?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Thank you, Mayor.
No problem.
Mr. Mayor, I had one brief item. I think this all sounds good, and I think it does clarify a lot. There's just one that I think is pretty broad, and maybe I was concerned about the, let's see, it's number 2, part D, which is page, I think 18149 there, probably I'll see, just want to make sure, page, 2. The keep all vegetation, plants, bushes, trees, and other greenery trimmed at least 12 inches off the ground and remove same from all fencing, walls, and other structures. I guess I'm thinking like plants 12 inches off the ground, or like bushes, some bushes are pretty much to the ground. That seemed pretty broad, I guess, to be part of the ordinance, yeah.
We can add more specific language. In speaking with the building official who has been out in the community, I think it's more for like the trees and the hanging bushes that have not been maintained. They're getting a lot of essentially harborage under those, where they're kind of harboring under there and away from the elements. So it's essentially, and it could be more clarifying language added, because it's not specific to plants or the maintained bushes, but more so for the hanging greenery that is creating that harborage for rodents.
I mean, I agree with that, because I was picturing someone who has hedges right up, along the front of their house or something like that. It would be weird to say trim them 12 inches up.
Yeah.
I guess the other, I'm sorry, did you have anything else?
No, that was all.
The other, I guess, question I had is the abatement within 30 days or violations will be issued when there's an infestation found. I guess, what would be the expectation from the building department? I mean, if someone has an infestation and it's underneath the slab of their garage or something like that, I don't know if I'd want to hit them with violations if they're unable to tear it out right away. Does that concern make sense? I think we might run into a situation where it's difficult for people to address it that quickly. If anyone has any thoughts?
You asking council members or?
Council or Rich?
Thank you, Mayor. I suppose we could add language where it says, upon the failure of any owner and or occupant to comply with the, instead of just directives, reasonable directives.
Yeah, reasonable directives, diligent efforts, something like that. I would just feel more comfortable with that.
I think I add language.
Sometimes you look at this problem, and we had, years ago, we saw a couple rats in our backyard. And at that time, we called the county. They came out, and they said, well, you have absolutely, there's nothing here. But look down the street, maybe 60, 70 feet, and he walked down there, and he said, I found it. They had something like hay or boards laying on the ground, hay on the ground. So this, solving the problem is not as difficult as people want to make it. It's common sense, and do what you have to do to clean up your yard, that's all.
Mayor, if I can add too, we have our sustainability fellow, Rui Zerbo, and she's also been working on this because a big piece of it is the education, and people just not being aware that certain things harbor rodents. So we are working on the education piece of it as well. So there will be information posted on social media. We're redoing, or Rui specifically is redoing the entire flyer. So we'll provide that information. It'll also be in our constant contact and as well as online. So we are working, as you had stated, Councilmember Curley, the education piece is very important. So we'll definitely attack that part as well.
All right, I don't think we have a motion on this yet, do we? No. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll motion we direct the city attorney to review and finalize the proposed amendments to Article 6, rodent control, and to schedule the matter for a first reading at the February 4th, 2025 regular city council meeting.
Support.
All right. Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Shadley?
Yes.
Mayor Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Curley.
Yes.
All right, moving on to item E, adopt resolution number 25-1996, approval of NDOT contract 24-5570 for reconstruction of 10 Mile from Hayes to Phlox/Cole.
So moved.
Support.
All right. Any comments that anyone wants to add on this?
We need it done. We need
Well-
it done desperately.
Yeah, well, let's get it done. Maybe, I don't know, who can I direct to kind of go through it a little bit? But I just want to make sure, and I should know, but I want to have everybody hear it. There is no road there on 10 Mile Road. Is that correct, Madam City Manager? There's no road diet?
This has nothing to do with the road diet, no.
There is no road diet scheduled for 10 Mile Road, that's what I'm asking.
There are no plans put in place for 10 Mile right now.
What do you mean?
There are no plans.
What do
for
you
the
mean, put in
reconstruction.
place? What does that mean?
The county has not approved plans or a project to move forward.
And they haven't suggested it.
10 Mile Road is a county road. The city can make recommendations, but it is a county decision on what the design of that road will be. This specifically is a resolution with the state of Michigan to accept a $3 million grant to reconstruct from Hayes to Phlox.
You said the design is the county's, I guess, yeah, I was confused as I was going about it. I think it's just pretty interesting that the state gave us an earmark for a road that's jurisdiction of the county, but then we're talking about a resolution with MDOT. I know we talked about that a little bit at the December 3 meeting, I think it was. So the engineering plans, then how does that work, you were saying?
So the county, in our discussions, they're open to the direction from city council in exploring if there is a change or requesting a change of design. For any of the county roads that we've had, we have done a split with the county in paying for a portion of the funding. So it's usually a 50-50 split unless we get grant funding. So I haven't spoken directly to Senator Kleinfeld, but she's essentially advocated for an earmark to cover a portion of the split for Eastpointe's funding piece to reconstruct that section of 10 Mile Road.
What did we think the total was gonna be again? I don't remember if it was in this.
For the entire, or just Hayes to Phlox?
Just Hayes to Fox.
Randy, do you know off?
We haven't seen any estimates yet.
Okay.
I don't. They've mentioned numbers, but I don't know offhand if they actually have a quote for the reconstruction. A piece of it is also trying to get a timeline from them, which I've shared just in my report. We're still in discussions and it's not permanent. A big piece was waiting for the resolution and the time frame of the earmark, when funding had to be completely spent from the agency. We have that date now, which is in 2029. And so I think the county is looking towards the fiscal year 2027, 2028. Again, it's not permanent, and we're still in discussions to try and identify when that happens. But we've also put in for the remainder of 10 Mile for a TIP grant. And so that's federal funding. And then for the remainder, essentially going east of 10 Mile, or east of Gratiot down 10 Mile to finish the remainder of the section. So the county is looking at it as doing it as one large project at a time, and we're advocating from the city's perspective, and what council has mentioned in previous meetings, is to move forward with the construction Hayes to Phlox, because it's an area that needs to be fixed right away instead of waiting for several years. We haven't gotten that commitment yet, but we're going to continue to advocate for that.
Then I guess I was going to suggest, so then this 3 million, I certainly, it's my opinion, covers our portion, and if it does go above and beyond, I think the county needs to, whatever the normal split is, the 3 million covers us, not the county portion, in my opinion, if the money is coming directly to us. But then I guess my other question then about that, and I guess about the whole road, was I was unsure how any of these recommendations were playing a part in that audit, because of course we talked about, maybe one was like kind of how the road is like in front of the speedway there, where it's kind of like a extra lane almost, it feels like, and it's super awkward. Like what things like that, how do we, that's why I was asking about like engineering, when is that kind of thing gonna be addressed, or when would we know about that? And I guess, is that unrelated to this MDOT resolution also?
Yeah, so this is just from the state signing off on the earmark. So similar to other, like the DOJ, basically accepting the grant award. This doesn't have anything specific to do with the county. We haven't gotten anything concrete. Again, they're trying to look at 27, 28. So we haven't even gotten to the point of a design. During the initial meeting, it was kind of the funding piece of doing a traffic study was kind of kicked around of who would actually pay for the traffic study, utilizing resources from SEMCOG. So we're still in the planning portion of what that would look like, but we're also taking the recommendation from council of wanting to just move faster on getting the reconstruction done as soon as possible. So that's kind of where we're at in talking with the county. But the resolution, this is specific to the state of Michigan, is not from the county. It's just accepting the grant funding, the grant award, and then committing to the time frame that they have for the earmark.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'd just request then that if there's any engineering plans that or anything like that that the county shares, that it be shared with city council. Thank you.
All right, we have motion support. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Shadlick?
Yes.
Councilmember Curley,
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Mayor Kleinfeld?
Yes. Item F, approval of the interim city manager contract. I suppose, Mariah, would you like to, I guess, introduce it? Unless someone's ready to make a motion.
So our labor attorney, Brandon Fournier, worked with our former city manager, Elke Doom, and has drafted an interim city manager contract for review and approval. Do you want me to go into any specifics, or?
I don't think so. I mean, council's had the opportunity to review the contract. I'm prepared to approve it as is. Is there any input from council?
Mr. Mayor, I have two just very minor. If we can change all the hymns to hers and spell your name correctly, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I didn't.
So if we could spell the mayor's name correctly, change the hymns to hers.
How did you catch that?
I don't know. It just looked strange, looked off, and that was all.
All right.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. One thing you do need to decide is what date you want this to start. Excuse me, in section 2, I think the recommendation was 1 week before Ms. Walton leaves, so there's some crossover.
It's fine with me.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would have the city manager read this. I think the people probably have a right to know their compensation and benefits. Because that's the question I would be asking if I was sitting out in the audience or at home, warm. What are we paying her and what kind of a benefits? So I think it'd be appropriate for city managers to read that.
Sure. So the compensation is listed at $175,000 for a year, essentially. So that'd be paid in biweekly installments based on the time frame that the council has, or has the interim manager for. So if she's here for an entire year, it would be $175,000. And if she's here for less, it would match that. And to be noted, there are no benefits provided to Ms. Doom during this time. It is simply compensation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would note, I think the no benefits makes it comparable to if we had a lower price with someone who was getting benefits. And on top of that, for Elke Doom, she's been here before, so she's not someone starting off new. She's coming back as someone who had worked for the city for several years. So I think I just want to note that. Well, I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the employment agreement to begin on February 26, 2025.
Support.
Any other comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Mayor Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Curley,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Shadlick?
Yes.
Item G, approval of massage therapy business license, Pure Touch Holistic Wellness Spa. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, I'll motion to approve the massage therapy business license for Pure Touch Holistic Wellness Spa located at 18121 8 Mile Road, Suite 130.
Is there support?
Support.
Great. Did anyone have any questions on this? Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Curley,
Yes.
Mayor Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Shadlick?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Moving on to item H, approval of appointment to Planning Commission. Mr. Or Councilman Curley, this was, I believe, added by you. Would you like to speak to it?
Well, I'll put a motion on the floor and see what happens. I would move to approve the appointment of Mary Hall Refford to the Planning Commission with a term to expire December 31st, 2029.
Second.
All right. Does anyone have any comments on this? All right, please call the roll.
Councilmember Curley,
Yes?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico,
No.
Mayor Kleinfeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Shadlick,
No.
Don't make me regret it, Mary. I'm just kidding. Item I, which was approval of the resolution that was handed to council. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, I'll motion we approve resolution number 25-1997, a resolution adopting the 2025 to 2029 Joint Parks and Recreation Master Plan for the Recreation Authority of Roseville and Eastpointe, City of Eastpointe, and City of Roseville.
Support.
And I would just note, I think the only thing that needs to be updated is the certification date on it. But otherwise, I believe it's identical to the one that was approved by Roseville and Rare. Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilmember Shadlick,
Yes.
Mayor Kleinfeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Curley,
Yes.
All right, payroll and bills. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Yes, Mayor, I move that we pay the bills in the amount of $5,762,004.25.
Wow. Support.
Any questions regarding the bills? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Curley,
Yes.
Councilmember Shadlick,
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Mayor Kleinfeld.
Yes. Moving on to the second hearing of the public. The second hearing of the public is now open. Would anyone wish to be heard?
Hi, I'm a resident of Eastpointe, and I got a couple questions. Number one, there's a gas station right on the corner of 9 Mile, no, that's Kelly and the street behind Juliana. I don't even know what street that is. Anyway, they doing some construction. Something is going on there. I did work on the planning committee at one time, so I remember when we had that discussion about that gas station. And they were supposed to just be able to add some inches, some back inches, but they're doing a whole, I don't even know how to say it, but almost like they're adding part almost to the end of the corner like a block. And the thing is, it hasn't been done. It's been under construction for almost 6 to 8 months. And when you go into the gas station, you can't even walk around there because there's so much junk in the place. Somebody needs to take a look at that and see what's going on. Just on base what you guys were talking about in terms of the planning, maybe that's part of where the problem is. There's a backup. You ain't got people, licensed people doing what they're supposed to do. I really think that's something you all need to make sure is going on. Even this other group you guys were talking about, you know you're having problems with them. Why would you continue to pay people that's not sending you people who need to help the city? The citizens is the ones being affected. So you really need to look at that. Make sure they have license and don't keep paying people if they're not doing the job. That's it.
Thank you. Would you mind stating your name for the record?
Cassandra Ford, but nobody else did. I thought that's how y'all was doing it.
Sometimes I miss it, but I know when they're doing the.
No, I'm just saying nobody else did when they came up. So that's why I just said I'm a resident of Eastpointe. I'm just following what they did.
Oh, thank you. Would anyone else?
Mary Hall Rayford, Eastpointe. Thank you for I believe, might be a vote of confidence, I don't know. But I do care a lot about the city, and it gives me a great deal of pleasure to serve the people in any way that I can. So I promise I won't let you down. I'll be here at every meeting on time and do my best to make sure that we have a city that we can all be proud of in everything we do. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, Tony Lipinski, Director for the Recreation Authority of Roseville and Eastpointe. First of all, thank you for the adoption of the resolution. Second of all, I just want to remind everybody that the Rec Authority Center will be closed tomorrow for programs due to the dangerously cold weather. So that's been posted, but a good place to make that reminder. If anybody wants to see our newest newsletter for the winter programs, it is online. I believe there's a link here also on the city's website. It's also on our website. But the one thing I want to make mention, and this is with Chief Corey Haynes regarding a blood drive that we will have coming up. We haven't promoted it much at all, but it is in cooperation with the Red Cross. We are planning a Battle of the Badges where the City of Eastpointe Police Department and the City of Roseville Police Department will be recruiting donors, hopefully more donors for them than the City of Eastpointe and City of Roseville Fire Departments. So we want them to, basically the two police departments and two fire departments will be battling out to see who can recruit the most donors for our blood drive scheduled for Friday, March 28th. I do not have a time yet, but you will get plenty of notice. And then Chief Haynes will be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Jennifer Nicholas, Eastpointe resident. Going back to 9 Mile, all of those businesses that I mentioned in the first 3 minutes that I spoke, kind of flipping it around to the business side of it. I'm just kind of curious how many of those businesses, all of the fast food drive-throughs and the CVS drive-through and the hardware store and the auto repair and oil change and Safe Light Auto Glass car rental, how many of those businesses are going to benefit economically with the reduction in vehicular traffic on 9 Mile? You know, I hear council members say how much they value our existing businesses and how much they support our existing businesses, and they love our existing businesses. And I think that some of you are being a little disingenuous about that. It would be more upfront if you would just come out and say that to our existing businesses that we're happy to continue to milk you for property taxes and keeping your property up while we slowly suffocate you out of business in the hopes that we will be bringing in all kinds of new businesses that will fit into this walkable environment that I still don't understand who all really wants that. You know, when we compare to Ferndale, and the reason why I bring up Ferndale is because it was very clearly listed in the master plan in 2019. And McKenna, that put this together, talked about how in 1990, the population and businesses were declining in Ferndale. And in 1997, they decided to reduce their 9 Mile road to 2 lanes, and that all these businesses sprung up and all of these people moved in there, and young professionals and more affluent people. But what they left out was the statistic that in 1990, the population of Ferndale was 25,084 people. And each decade over decade, it has declined. The population has declined every decade until 2020. They are at 19,190 people, which is a reduction of 23.5% of their population. So assuming that all these people moved into the city, in order to have a net loss of 23.5%, a lot of people must have moved out. Maybe that's what their intention was. Maybe that's what we're intending here. I don't know, because I hear from you that we're trying to bring more people into the city and we're building all this housing to encourage people and young families to come into this city. But if you're trying to model us after Ferndale or other areas like that, we're going to lose population. I mean, they lost population in Ferndale. So I'm not sure what the plan is here. I mean, even when you talk about the revitalization of Detroit, yeah, downtown, midtown, Corktown, revitalized, nobody can afford to live there anymore. I guarantee that the people that used to live there are no longer living there. So again, if someone could address the plan for the city here, and I really wish that you would support the businesses. They come out and they talk to you about what their needs are for 9 Mile, and I really would hope that you would support them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone else? Seeing none, the second hearing of the public is closed. We'll move on to mayor and council reports. Councilman DeMonico.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Chief, put me down for the blood drive. Does it, where's Tony, does it count as 2 if you do double reds? Put me down for double reds, we're counting it as 2. But in seriousness, put me down. For 9 Mile, to quickly address concerns, there are vacant businesses down 9 Mile. Certainly, the plan is certainly not to kick out currently thriving businesses, and the road diet is not going to destroy any businesses. It'll do the opposite by bringing more people to the area and making it a more attractive area. Let's see. I'd like to congratulate the new school board members. We've got a new set of officers, of course, newly elected folks that were just sworn in. We've got our new president, Geneva Early. Robert Roscoe's the new vice president. Ed Williams is the secretary. Treasurer is a new member, Darlene Whitby. So she was reelected, as was, she was elected. Ed Williams was reelected. Shelley Chopa's new to the board and was just elected. And let's see, who am I missing? Robert. Robert was just reelected. So get to know those folks so you know everybody on the school board. Say hi, go out to a school board meeting if you get a chance. Hope everyone had a great MLK Day. And then, I know it's only January, but we're gonna start planning the Memorial Day Parade. So if you're even thinking about helping out, come out on Monday. We'll be meeting at 6:30 at the Military Museum. We need a little of everything. If you're good at tech, you can help us out with the website or Facebook. If you're good at fundraising money or you want to give a few people a call, let us know, or just to participate. Or if you know anybody, just come by and let us know how you can help out. All kinds of things. There's a lot of stuff to do, and right now it's a smaller group than we hope. So if people can come out and help, that'd be good. And then I guess just one other thing I want to mention, it's kind of was a roller coaster over the weekend, as I'm sure you saw, specifically regarding the banning of TikTok. I want to bring that up because we've had First Amendment issues in the city here, and I think it's frankly a huge First Amendment issue. I know it's been shown as a national security threat, but I think if you asked any person that uses it, especially I think all young people, and I mean 20s, younger than me, they use it to talk to their friends, or they make money off of it by selling stuff, or by being an influencer, you'd call them. And so hopefully we keep it going. I don't think there's national security implications, but I just wanted to bring that up because we've had First Amendment discussions at the city here, and I just think I just wanted to talk about that for a moment. So I think that's all, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Councilwoman Pashadlik.
I'd like to address the business owners who had come forward at the hearing of the public, Cheryl and Steve in particular. You know, I feel very badly for them that their parking situation is what it is. I had tried to convey that the road diet would eliminate that problem, but I think there was a lot of misinformation out there for the business owners. They were given some bad information, and so I think a lot of them came forward against the diet, thinking that it wouldn't affect their parking. And unfortunately, it has affected their parking. So I do feel bad for them, and I'm sorry. I do go to your business all the time, East Detroit Bakery, Steve. I'm constantly there. Secondly, I would like to address, we had mentioned about the 10 Mile Road, grant that we received from Senator Kleinfeld. I think, you know, given that we've received $3 million on that, just as one of the projects, again, I would like to request that maybe we honor Senator Kleinfeld for the contributions that she has gotten for us. Just even a small ceremonial type thing, meeting maybe in February, if we could add that to the agenda to honor and thank her for the contributions and the all the advocating that she has done on our behalf for our community. I think we're one of the only communities who, quite honestly, we benefited the most, and we didn't even thank her. So I think that that's remiss on our part, and I would request that that be put on the agenda and that we invite her when she's available to come to one of our meetings so that we could at least thank her for that. And then I'd like to wish Gary happy birthday and thank him for his hard work. I know he's a very dedicated individual on our boards and commissions, and we appreciate you, Gary. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you, Councilman Baker.
Thank you. Yeah, in regards to 9 Mile, I don't want to be redundant, but we do appreciate you guys coming out to let us know what you're thinking, what you're seeing. Sometimes we sit in a very unique spot because we're hearing information from your perspective. We also hear information from the engineering perspective. And so those are just some of the things that we have to really weigh out. So it's not that, you know, we're sitting up here saying, hey, I want to do this to you or anything. It's really trying to make the best decision we can, you know, with the information that we have. And I know we've talked several times, and I've frequented your business probably a lot more than I should have over the years, but I do understand your concerns, and, you know, we don't want you to think that it goes unheard. So, but we appreciate you coming out and sharing that with us, but there is a lot that we do have to consider and try to take into, there's a lot we have to take into consideration to make sure that or to try to make the best decision that we can, but relying on, you know, the information that we're getting, and just trying to do the best job that we can do. So, but please know that you don't go unheard. The other issue in regards to 9 Mile about the walkability, you know, it's been a very interesting conversation just over however long it's been talking about 9 Mile in its various phases. I've been vocal at the meetings about it, and I don't want to, you know, really drum all of that up again. Some of the questions that were posed are some of the questions that I've had. And especially looking at this phase 3, there are some questions that I do have too. Looking at the road from the first 2 phases, then talking about bringing it down and then back out again. Like there's elements of it that I don't understand. And to me personally, I don't agree with. I've never expressed any favor of the road diet. I'm still not in favor of it. We know that decision comes from 5 people up here, and the majority wins that vote. But yes, I think that those are valid questions. I think the concerns that the business owners brought before us in regards to a rolled diet and how they feel it affects their business, I feel that they have a right to have those concerns and a right to ask those questions. I'm not a business owner, but if my belief was that traffic would be diverted away from my business, I would be concerned about that. And so I just want to be sure that, you know, no one feels that they can't ask those questions, they can't express their feelings. I think it's very legitimate. With the businesses that you named, there are car-based businesses, you know, car washes, drive-through restaurants, coffee shops. They're dependent on people coming in and going out by vehicle, even with the banks, the bank that's on 9 Mile. So I think those are valid concerns. But those don't go unheard either. But unfortunately, sometimes what I think is good is not what everybody else agrees with, or some others may not agree with. But to the businesses that have concerns about it, don't stop talking about it. Don't stop sharing that with us. To Gary, happy birthday. Thank you. I hope it was a great day. And, you know, I think you should celebrate all week if you want to. There's a gentleman that usually comes to these meetings. He's been asking me about my word of the day. And I had one for him, but he's not here today. But the word was punctiliousness. And that is just, it describes a person who pays attention to the small details, details of conduct in a ceremony. So if he's watching, I hope he got that. And that's all I got.
Thank you. Councilman Curley.
Thank you, Mayor. Three separate things. Over in the corner, as you walk out, you'll see a door with writing on it. That door is in honor of President Jimmy Carter. And what we want you to do is write something on there, whatever you want, and then that'll be taken back to the Habitat main office. They did that for his wife as well. So I invite you to participate and honor yourself by honoring President Carter. Second thing is, it's so cold outside. And we do have two feral cats that we adopted 2 years ago, took them to the vet, made sure they were all right. There's one more who comes every day, every night, and we built the bed out on our porch box, and we got straw and a blanket. And when we see him coming up, we'll feed him first, and he hops in that box and goes to sleep probably till 6 or 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. And do you know why I love your place? And don't tell me I'm wrong, because because I tell people about it all the time. It's still East Detroit Bakery. It's not halfway. It's not Orange. But it's East Detroit Bakery. And I want to believe in my heart that you said, I'm not changing it. It's staying the way it is. So thank you. God bless you. I know. Now, the rest of the people who sell donuts and coffee, please don't yell at me. He's here, and so I'm excited about it, because before our gentleman got sick and had to go to American House, Rob and myself and this other gentleman, every morning I would go in there and get 3 coffees and 3
apple fritters.
Apple fritters. Only once were they out of apple fritters. They said, Harvey, we run out of stuff every once in a while. I said, well, just give me something then. But they haven't been out of it since. So thanks for coming tonight. Thank all you folks for coming. Dress warm. Wear socks to bed. I wear socks to bed. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Make sure you take off your shoes. So, and Gary,
already threw me under the bus once tonight.
God bless you. That's it, Mayor. God bless everybody.
Thank you. Well, I'll also say happy birthday to Gary. And piggyback on that, I'll say happy birthday to my mom, who had a birthday about a week ago. She shares the same birthday with Martin Luther King. There were a few of us who were able to go to the event over the weekend with the Macomb County Ministerial Alliance. I think that's always nice to see. Got to see some kids get some scholarships from them. And obviously, Pastor Lancaster from our own community is a huge part of that. So it's always good to see how much he's doing in the community at the county level. In regards to the people who spoke about parking, I agree that parking is one of the biggest issues on 9 Mile. It's very developed up until right behind some of the businesses. There's narrow space to find for parking, so I am looking forward to taking a look at that. And I think in Hope Council we'll do everything we can to provide as much parking as possible, because I don't think taking away any parking is going to be beneficial. So, and thank you for coming out to, share your opinions with everyone on council. In regards to, I just want to note for council that you did get, the social media committee had been meeting for several months, so we have provided council with a draft of that. Second meeting in February, we'll hope to vote on that. I know some people have had concerns in the past about Eastpointe's presence on Facebook, so it'll be kind of related to all of that. Stay warm, everyone, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Curley,
Yes.
Councilmember Shadlick,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Mayor Kleinfeld.
Yes. Meeting adjourned at 8:54.